So, Paul, first of all, how's your experience been so far as manager of the Wales under-19s team?
Well, it's been thoroughly enjoyable. I've been working with the Welsh intermediate groups for nearly 7 years now, but on a full-time basis it's just over 2 years. Last year in particular was really good. We qualified for the elite group with the under-19s, so that was a great achievement for the boys, something that we don't do regular. I think the last time we did it was in 2014, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that group. So I've been in the system quite a long time, and I've obviously seen sort of the Dan Jameses coming along, watching him as an under-17 and seeing how he's developed and progressed. It should give all these young current group of players much hope for the future. And
how has your time here helped you develop as a manager, develop your skills?
Well, it's a lot. I mean, I remember when I first started as a youth team coach at Swindon Town, there was just 2 members of staff. And when you come away with a Welsh camp, there's probably 10 members of staff. So we've all got our own roles and responsibilities within that. We work closely with the analysts, which obviously wasn't around back 8-9 years ago at Swindon Town for sure. So they're all professional people, and we want one sole thing, and that's for the Welsh young players to develop and hopefully go on into the senior levels.
You've worked with some brilliant managers in the past, both as a player and imagine as a coach as well. And Terry Orith, who you played under for Wales, have any of them impacted you as a coach? Or have you take any certain styles from them, the way, he did that brilliantly, I could use that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you always pick the best parts of your previous managers, no doubt. And obviously the ones who perhaps you didn't get on with so well, or they treated players differently and you didn't like their perhaps style, you don't use that yourself. But I think the most important thing as a coach stroke manager is how you deal with people nowadays, how you treat people. Humanity is a massive thing. I was brought up on a council estate in Cardiff, and I still keep them values now. Life is about hard work and earning something rather than being given it. And you have to appreciate it when you got it. So the values are very much with me from my childhood, but as you say, I've picked up some really good working relationships. Like you said, Terry was brilliant for me personally, brilliant for the Welsh nation. We were within a whisker of qualifying back in '94, but I've worked under Glenn Hoddle, Ozzy Ardiles, a World Cup winner himself, Steve McMahon. Len Ashurst was my first club manager, and he really sort of helped me through the early years. So all managers have got something to offer, but you have to be your own personality, you have to be your own character. It's not an act. When you're going into work every day and working with the players, you've got to be your natural self, and I think players kind of take to that honesty, that integrity, a little bit of loyalty, and I think that'll help you in good stead.
And you mentioned as well previously your time at Swindon, youth team coach, and you've managed Bath as well. Have you brought anything from your time there to here with the Wales under-19 squad? Have you had to adapt your management styles at all?
Well, when you first start off, you think you perhaps know quite a lot, and you don't. It's only until you're on the grass every day. And like I said, there was only 2 members of staff at Swindon. So basically, you drive the minibus, you take the warm-ups, you warm the goalkeepers up, you work with the goal. So you have to incorporate all the players within your training sessions. You have to look after their physical side, the mental side, the tactical and technical side. So you have to cover all angles. So you become very adaptable, and being on the grass every day, you learn an awful lot about the players and about yourself.
So you've worked as well with a lot of various age groups within the Welsh system. Is there a lot of difference, say, between the under-17s, 18s, 19s, or is it sort of all the same premise, so to speak?
Well, the same philosophy is there from the coaching perspective and the way we want to play. We're obviously physically, the under-17s, and when we take the under-17s, generally they're under-16s or under-15s. So from a physical perspective, they're quite a way behind. So we identify that, and we know that, and we wouldn't ask them to do some of the physical things that the 19s and 21s can do. So you have to adapt either your training sessions or your expectations to each different age group.
So is there, while working with the under-19s, there's this Welsh way of coaching, this framework set up? Is that commonplace with each national team, or is it for each team individually? Is it different the way?
No. We try and coach the same way. We have a philosophy, and as you rightly say, it was called the Welsh way, I suppose, but we've gone off that slightly. But there are principles of play which we use throughout the age groups, and even as far as Ryan gave us an imprint, a footprint of how he wants his team to play, and obviously working with him and Rob Page certainly a lot closer to Ryan. That gets passed down. The messages get passed down. For example, we use a lot of the first team clips either from training or matches and principles of play of what they've done, so our boys can see that it's being used at that level, and when we obviously implement it at our levels, various levels, then the boys are doing very, very similar, but perhaps not quite at the intensity because they haven't got the physicality as I mentioned just now.
Do you see any potential success for this under-19s team in the future in terms of perhaps going up to the under-21s, maybe play for the national team or club level?
Yeah, I mean that's the natural progression. 17s, 19s, 21s. A lot of players come in and they can drift. Depends on what happens at their club level, because their clubs really dictate their development program. They're with them every day. We get them, I think it's 50 days a year now, which is good. It's improved over the last few years. Rob Page brought that in, bringing extra members of staff in, and it allows us now to spend a bit more time in the international breaks. We're out at the international break at the moment, which is an unusual thing to get the players in, because the clubs have total control of the players. They sometimes don't let their players outside the window, which I understand in certain instances, but it's great getting the players together for a training camp as opposed to just prepping, 2 days prepping, and then you're playing a game or you're playing in a competition. So this week has given us a luxury, if you like, of getting a lot more work done with the players and implementing our principles in possession and out of possession.
Of course, now with the Welsh national team especially, there's this huge emphasis on youth, bringing through all these young players, like you mentioned Dan James, Ampadu, players like that. How important is it to start developing these youth players at this age now, the under-19s, for maybe potential professional playing careers? Is it important to introduce those professional standards now, or is it more just about enjoying that experience while you're here?
Well, all the standards, since the academies have come into play, the EPPP a few years ago, the standards have improved, the facilities have improved, the staffing's improved. But ultimately it's down to the players. You can put on the best training sessions and have the best pitches and get them all watered before they turn out, the balls, the equipment, everything is top draw nowadays, so that's a real improvement. Ultimately, as I say, it's down to the players, their drive, their determination. They got to sacrifice things which their 16, 17, 18-year-old mates, from their housing estates or wherever they live, they're easily influenced. So it's important that they commit themselves 100% to being a professional football. Give it your best shot, because it's a tough industry anyway, and the fallout is massive in young players. I've seen it over the last 6 years. Players who perhaps 6 years ago we thought, they might be playing senior football now. They're not even playing, or they're playing low-level football, which is fine, because every player will find his level. Some players excel a little bit later, the late developers, the lads who are not physically big at 15, 16, who can't quite implement all their technical ability, but they find 18, 19, 20, they're able to do that, and all of a sudden they come through the system. So yeah, it's a real mixed bag really. There's no crystal ball to say yes, he'll make it, or no, he won't. The no, he won't is a little bit easier, because you can tell by attitudes and the way they approach each training session that they're not giving themselves the best shot, and we try and help them along the way. But because we're only with them for a short space of time, we're not going to change too much. But what we do, we give them a platform and an opportunity to play international football, which generally is better than their club football. Play in Spain and Holland recently, they got players in their first teams at their clubs. One player in particular who plays for Spain, he's played 37 times for Valencia this year. And another, the left back, played for Barcelona this year in the Champions League. So that's what our young players are up against, and they have to aspire to be in their first teams. Initially I've just been having a conversation this morning about, if you're in the youth team, can you get in your 23s? And if you're in the 23s already at 18, 17, 18, why not try and get in the first team squad? Set your standards as high as you possibly can.
And a lot of the reason now for the introduction of youth into the national team is Ryan Giggs. He's introduced it. You played with him obviously when he was just coming through the Welsh system as a young player. Were you surprised when you became Wales manager, or is it more about, oh yeah, he's a legend and doesn't surprise me?
Well, I think, when I actually played in Ryan's debut all them years ago, when he was a 17-year-old, so he was the same age as these young guys here now. So the game has changed. I mean, squads are much bigger, first team level, and then you've got an under 23 squad. So there's a development squad in between. So any youth team players, they're not going to jump into the first team unless they're exceptional. It still does happen occasionally, but in the norm, it's the process of 16s, 18s, 19s in some cases, the Champions League boys, 23s, and then hopefully the first team. But yeah, did I see Ryan when he was first breaking out as a 17-year-old? No, all I saw was a very talented young player at Man United, and obviously any player who's at Man United, they're there for a reason. But for the career he had as a player was phenomenal. Obviously he did a bit of coaching at Manchester United and showed that side that he wanted to get involved. But the career he had himself was unbelievable. To be at Manchester United, one club man for that long, and to play at the level he did was unbelievable. And I'm sure his one big mentor was Alex Ferguson, someone who looked after the players on and off the pitch. I'm sure that kind of influences the way he manages and coaches now. And
of course he knows the importance of the youth, being both for Manchester United, coming through their youth system, and through the playing for Wales as a youngster. Does he keep an eye out on the under-19s? Is he aware of what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he sent us a nice message last year before we qualified. I think we had one game to go, and it was just a nice message to show the players that he's interested. And obviously the closer age group, as I said, the under 21s with Rob Page. I mean, I think 9 of the last group of players he had are all been part of the senior squad. So yeah, so there's the ladder of progression. But as I said, they've got to be good enough, and they've got to show the right attributes at their clubs and progress at their clubs, and then ultimately and hopefully they will get the opportunity at senior level, because the evidence is there. Chris Coleman started implementing some of the younger players, but certainly Ryan's new era now, with perhaps 1 or 2 players getting a little bit older, coming towards the end, there was a planning process to bring some younger players into the system.
And you said how important it is as well for that progression at club level. Is it important now for players like this to start getting 1 or 2 minutes maybe for the under 23s, like you said, maybe 1 or 2 minutes off the bench in the league games, for example?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can't dictate what their clubs do. They'll pretty much, the players will dictate what really happens at their clubs, because if they're consistent in their performances, if they're in every day and trying to do extra, then all the signals they set to the coaching staff will help promote them. And then when they get promoted, it's about taking that opportunity. As I said, going back to what I said earlier, I was a youth team coach, and I would quite often go to my first team manager and say, look, I think this player's ready. But then they've got to show it when they go in the first team group. So any of these young players who've gone up with Ryan, they have to show that they've got all the skill sets to be able to deal with senior football and top international football, and providing that they do that, and we try and give them a little base to work from. But like I said, the clubs predominantly do all the development work, and we just give them an opportunity to showcase their skills on the international stage.
And finally, you've done so much for the young teams here at Wales as well. You've done a bit managing with Swindon. What is your ambition as a manager? Is it currently just to work with the Wales team, or do you see yourself potentially going into professional league?
Well, you never know. I mean, I was assistant manager with Rob at Port Vale for a year. I enjoyed that, but there was sort of personal things really going on at that time, so I didn't stay for more than 12 months. But this is an ideal job for me personally. You get to go out and watch the players at their clubs and see them develop over a period of time. Then you select them and you bring them into the squad, and then we work them. And like I said, we try and implement a lot of the principles of play, and then we see them develop over a period of time. So it's kind of an ideal job at the moment, but hey, listen, in football you're only a phone call away from something else, or good or bad. We know the volatility of league football and the pressures that brings. You could go and take a job, and in 3 months, 4 months time you might get the sack. This is more of a long-term project to watch the young current group of talented players progress, and hopefully in a few years time we'll see some of these under 19s in the first team squad.
Thank you for your time.